Viewers, welcome to another special show. This show is about candidate conversation. So it's candidate conversation, your community, your vote. So you understand what we're talking about. The primaries are here. The people are excited because the country is in a very peculiar position. Why? I guess you know all more than I do, but we'll break it down a little bit later. Today's show is special because we are talking about Queens. We're talking about New York 7. And I'm Habib Rahman. I'm with you in this show, and I have Kalita Mitra with me, and I have Vichal Kumar. Thank you for coming. We will get to know more as we progress. Mitra, I'll let you start, and then we'll go from there.
Well, Habib, it's lovely to be here again. I always love coming on TBN24 because as soon as I leave the studio and we air this program, I'll be like somewhere in Astoria and someone will recognize me. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Right.
So thank you for bringing that recognition to Epicenter. So Epicenter NYC is the community journalism outlet that I run. We partner with TBN often to make sure that we are bringing you the news of the elections going on in New York City right now. And we've partnered particularly in this pre-primary moment in New York City. The primaries are June 23rd, if you're registered in a party in New York City. And we're really I think we're kicking this off with the right candidate because we were just talking about what it's like going back home to India.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so why don't
I want to fill in the viewers a little bit more why today is really important, because especially this is in outside Queens. And this is, we have a candidate from here. So tonight is, we focus on one of the most closely watched congressional race in New York, 7th congressional district. You will get to know why in a minute, okay? A district that represents the diversity, energy, immigrant spread, and, of Brooklyn and Queens, you can say that, right? Our guest tonight, he is a civil rights attorney, and longtime public defender who says, we'll get to know more, Washington is failing. Who they're failing? The working class Americans, you and I, and immigrant communities. He's a son of working class immigrant. Kumar has spent more than 2 decades fighting for housing security, deportation cases, access to healthcare, public benefit, and for, vulnerable families. His campaign slogan is resist, reclaim, and reimagine. What it means, we get to know from him in a bit. But the centers of, these are the centers on immigration reform, workers' rights, affordable healthcare, housing insecurity, and security, whatever you want to call it, and government accountability, which we have none today. In a true sense. So as the Democratic primary intensifying ahead of June election, voters in this district, NY07, they're mostly asking a few questions and important ones. Who can truly represent you and I? The struggles and aspirations of ordinary New Yorkers, such as you and I again, in a deeply changing political climate. So tonight, we discuss policies, leadership, immigration, affordability, the future of progressive politics in New York. And with that, I'm going to present today to you, Vichal Kumar. Thank you once again. I know the intro was a little bit more, but I want to set the stage right. So, Mitra, you get to go first.
Well, I actually would love to start with your origin story. Before we get into why you're running and the issues in the district, Vichal, who are you? And I'm just going to come out and say I've never heard a name like Vichal before. So we were all debating your South Asian origins, but maybe that's part of your origin story. Why don't we start there?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here. It's wonderful to be in studio with you all. It's a lovely studio, by the way.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I particularly appreciate the picture right behind me.
Yeah, we want to see you back there.
Aspirations. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vichal Kumar. Vichal is definitely a unique name and pretty easy to find if people know how to spell my name, to be clear, because Vichal gets a little bit confusing very quickly. I was born in New York. My parents came to the States from India. And when I was born here, I'm pretty sure my parents had to fill out their birth certificate. And when they had to fill out the birth certificate, they weren't used to doing that. They're used to, in our culture, having a naming ceremony some period after time that we were born. And because they probably filled it out meant to get the S all the way around. I think they just got the C and then it was printed and they're like, well, we're new to this country and so we're just going to abide by its rules, and 𝗏𝗏 it is. And every time I ask them how my name came, they're like, well, ask your aunt. Every time I ask my aunt, they're like, ask your parents. Ultimately, they settled on it's a unique name. But now you know why we go by Kumar for the campaign. It's a lot easier to digest. My parents were working class immigrants. They owned a convenience store my entire life growing up. And I remember being at that store from when I was a little kid to when I was about 25 years old, working on stocking shelves, making sandwiches, meeting community members, and really understanding what business meant. I love my parents dearly, but my parents, not the best business people. They used to give out credit to all their customers because they could never go see anybody go hungry or need baby supplies or need hygiene products, even though that caused us to sometimes go without heat or hot water, potentially having our home foreclosed. And what all that taught me was never that I was wanting anything, but rather we had the responsibility of taking care of our community. And that's really been the through line of my life, both personally and professionally, which ultimately led me to become a public defender.
And where was the convenience store and where were you raised? I just wanted to get specific about geography.
Sure. So I was born in the city and then my parents moved out to Jersey when I was pretty young. And so the convenience store was in a working class community in New Jersey. Not dissimilar to the bodegas that we see in New York, heavily Eastern European, Brazilian, a lot of mixed communities. And so then I ended up growing up in that area and then moved back, and I've been living in Brooklyn for the last 22 years.
And I know Habib is going to ask you about being a public defender, but how did you end up in that line of work?
Yeah, so I was that kid that from a pretty young age, I had decided that they wanted to be a lawyer, but a lawyer that was going to help people. I didn't really understand what that meant as a very young age. My parents were unfortunately on the wrong side of a lawsuit. They didn't have representation. And I didn't understand why the legal system of all places was not fair or just, where facts didn't matter, but really it was the size of your wallet that ultimately made decisions. So from that young age, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to help people, much to my parents' chagrin. I didn't chase corporate law or big law or in-house, and went straight to public defense.
Yeah, it's very fascinating because, you just said that your parents were on the wrong side of the lawsuit.
They were.
Right? I think many people can actually, say, you know what, hey, I hear it. I think I was part of that story too. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult for them to navigate through this system, which is very difficult for people who don't know, even people you know. So I'm going to come to that a little later, but, you have been for over past 20 years, you just mentioned, working as a public defender, civil rights attorney, and, you have that experience that shaped your vision, maybe to represent the New York 7, mm-hmm. right, in Congress. So has it shaped that vision? And, if so, how?
Yeah, I think our platform, our vision for what we think government can be is all rooted in personal and professional stories. I've been fortunate enough to work with thousands and thousands of New Yorkers and be with them in the hardest moments of their lives and sit at their kitchen tables, sit with their families, and unfortunately have to visit them in detention centers. And what you learn from those experiences is what people really go through in the hardest moments. You can read the law, you can read a policy paper, but what people are actually feeling in those moments is what drives everything that we talk about. It's those experiences, those voices that inform our platform, but why it is that we talk about how government needs to work for people, because it hasn't. Right? Yes, we're in a moment right now where our government is failing, simply. But if you've been in the room for the last 20 years, it hasn't been working all that great for a very long time. And that is a lot of what people are feeling. It's like, well, people talk about apathy in politics a lot and the electorate not being engaged. And yes, they're not, but why should they be? What has government actually done for them? What have politicians actually delivered in terms of driving results to them and impacts? And so our entire platform, our entire mission is really rooted in those experiences.
I wonder if it's a good moment to kind of zoom out and look at this district. So
Sure.
I'll confess, I started my career at Newsday 30 plus years ago. I was covering Queens. Nydia Velázquez was the congresswoman then. She did a lot of press conferences on small businesses, minority rights, people of color. We didn't have a lot of people of color in Congress. And so Nydia Velázquez has really been seen as a bit of a force, I think, for much of my professional career. I just kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about getting into the race and also where you see yourself. So this is a crowded race. There's at least 4 viable candidates. There'll be a debate that I'm actually moderating with the group in Sunnyside. But just to kind of give you a sense of who's in the race, we have Antonio Reynoso, who's the Brooklyn Borough president. He's been backed by Nydia Velázquez herself. So she's said, this is who I want to be my successor, is Antonio Reynoso, who's the Brooklyn Borough president. We have Claire Valdez, who's an assembly member backed by Zoran Mamdani. She's a DSA candidate. And so the mayor has come out and endorsed Claire Valdez. And then we have Julie Wan, who is the New York City Council representative for this side of Queens. Interestingly, this district is kind of I don't want to say a Frankenstein district, but it is. It's Brooklyn, Queens, and a part of Manhattan. Like, that's rare, right? It has to
No more Manhattan.
No more Manhattan?
Yeah.
Okay, when I was covering it, it used to have. So thank you for correcting that. I can't keep up with the redistricting that's been going on here. So it's just Brooklyn and Queens. It used to, I swear, we used to do press conferences in a little sliver of Manhattan that she had. So where do you see yourself in that landscape, whether it's politically to the left or the right of any of these candidates, and then just evaluate, Congresswoman Velázquez's record. Like, what prompted you to say, I'm going to be the successor to this kind of pioneer?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The district used to include parts of Manhattan as well. It was in the most recent redistricting. It is now just Brooklyn and Queens. So there's been a little bit of shifting of the district at times. Representative Velázquez is a pioneer, has been a leading voice, a leading champion, both for minority rights, but also small businesses, which is something, as you'd imagine, I care deeply about, having grown up in that environment and that really being embedded in my DNA. And I think when you put those two things together, you have a legacy of someone who's been a champion. And this position really is an opportunity to continue to push that legacy further, to continue to drive government to be responsible to the diversity, the richness of this district, while also supporting what really makes this district so unique. It is the people and it is the spirit of entrepreneurship that I think is vibrant throughout this district, whether you're in Brooklyn or whether you're in Queens. You see that everywhere. Small businesses, people creating new endeavors is what drives us and motivates us, why people want to come visit these areas now, why we're like now tourist destinations. Like, well, Manhattan's a whole bunch of corporate stores. Let me go see what's happening in these spaces. And that's a legacy that I think is an incredible opportunity to build on. How I see myself in this race is that there's 3 politicians in this race and there's 1 public defender. There's 4 of us on the ballot, and only one of us comes at this from a perspective of having worked in the environments that our government most fails every single day for 20 years. And that's where I come from. I don't come from giving speeches. I don't come from reading talking points. I come from literally doing the work and showing up every single day. To the extent that there was recently a community member that was from the Bronx, actually, and was detained by ICE. And Hands Off, if y'all are familiar with Hands Off, which has done such a tremendous job teaching community members about how to protect each other from ICE, put out a call on social media and said, hey, does anybody know a lawyer because this community member has been taken and kidnapped by ICE? I saw it, and of course, I responded because I responded as a candidate. I responded as a lawyer because I've seen this situation again and again. Fathers being taken away from families. He was sent up to Massachusetts, away from his family, away from his support system, because that's what ICE does. ICE hopes that by isolating you, you won't fight back. And I work with pro bono counsel. I talked directly with him. I engaged with family. And we continued to collaborate until he was finally released a month ago. And that, to me, is what showing up means. It doesn't mean just giving the speech. It means actually doing the work that is most critical when our communities are under assault. So when it comes to positioning, I don't need to talk about political labels. It's really rooted in the showing up and the work.
So if I were to ask you, in the spectrum of the left.
Sure.
Where you would put yourself in the candidates. Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are clear. My entire life, my entire work, my entire values and ethos has always been in some lane of progressivism when it comes to this country. I've pushed against systems and institutions every single place I've gone. Fought against immigration systems, fought against policing in New York, fought against the lack of affordable housing. And I think that clearly puts us in the lane of these institutions are broken and we need new ones, which would fall to the leftist part of this party.
What are your saying? I mean, it's very easy to identify you from these words that, you're left, progressive left, I would say, right? Some people will say, oh, no, not another Mamdani, right? Or AOC, right?
Yeah.
Or that crazy old man, Bernie Sanders. Some people will say that, right?
Some of your viewers, maybe.
Some of our viewers would say that. I mean, I don't.
And some of our audience too. Actually,
and then you have this, right? You have this neocons and neoliberals say we have this issue. I'm saying this because we are standing in a moment where the country is polarized with immigration. Mm-hmm. Either you go left or you go right. And there are people saying ICE is doing the right thing. But even if you look at with the naked eyes, ICE is killing unarmed people. Mm-hmm. Renee Goods, you remember, in Minnesota, the doctor, the nurse, rather,
nurse,
right?
Alex Predit.
Predit, right? So he was shot, and countless other people picked up, just like you gave us an incident. No. This is not a popular position to be in this dramatic time, a time of Trump, especially, right? You have the MAGA. So one of the strongest positions in your campaign, I noticed. I'll let you know what are the agendas that you know and why so. You get a chance to speak about those.
Sure.
But your campaign message is called "Dismantle ICE."
Yes.
Now the critics, they would approach it too extreme, just like I described, right? Because of the polarization. How do you respond to those concerns, and what specific immigration reforms you would prioritize if you were to go to Congress?
Yeah. So we say dismantle ICE because to me, ICE isn't just about the rogue law enforcement agency that is terrorizing our communities. That is a single aspect of it that we see in the media and we see happening in lots of big cities. Of course, all the harm that they inflicted in Minnesota, we've been seeing it in New York even more so. But behind this rogue law enforcement agency is this massive growth of detention centers that is occurring around the country.
Yeah.
So much of the funding that has been dedicated to ICE and DHS isn't just about the enforcement agency, but it's about building out these detention centers, buying up warehouses, and creating jails. And there's also a massive surveillance system that is being built that isn't just being used to target immigrant communities, that is being targeted U.S. citizens as well. Yeah. And I think that if we don't recognize the entire structure of harm that is being created, we're going to kind of miss the boat because sometimes we get complacent. We talk about ICE, and then if we get ICE out of our streets, we're like, great, we won the battle. And that's not it, right? There's so much more happening. So dismantle ICE was a particular choice that we used. I've heard critiques of it, of course, because there are people that say, well, we have immigration laws and we need to enforce them and we need to comply with them. I ask people to take a step back. Like, immigration law has not always been as cruel, unjust, and inhumane as it is today. Even people forget now, but in the 80s, we had amnesty under the Reagan administration. Right. And then in the 1990s, under the Clinton administration, is when we passed new immigration laws that created much of the punitive immigration laws that we have today. Mm-hmm. And ICE is a product of 9/11, right? ICE was created after 9/11 to target communities that look like us, frankly. And so we don't have to look very far back in our history to recognize a time where our immigration system was different. So yes, it's a polarizing issue, but if you look at the data, a majority of Americans today actually believe in some form of immigration reform, and they believe that ICE is not doing an appropriate job. And this is the first time that's happened since I was protesting in the streets in the early 2000s, and we were talking about DACA and DAPA and hoping to have immigration change. So there's the moral, the just, the right issue about what ICE is doing to our communities, but there's also an entire economic argument that is happening as well. Small businesses, agricultural farmers around the country are talking about a lack of labor. And when you bring these two forces together, what you have is sometimes you're not going to get everyone to agree that this is the right thing to do because of the morality of it or the justice of it. But you find other ways that you can message it to bring people together and coalition build. And I actually think this is an opportunity for us to do that. In Congress, we need to first start with eliminating the amount of funding that ICE and CBP and DHS are getting. We need to cap it. We need to end the utilization of AI and surveillance and stop the expansion of detention centers. But we also need to put resources into reopening TPS, adjudicating naturalization applications again, allowing asylum interviews to happen, and listening to the small businesses, not just in New York, but across the country that are starving for labor. I've worked across the country. I've been in communities like Southern West Virginia and Northwest Indiana, conservative, rural, red as red can be places. You know what they told me? ICE came through here, wiped out the community, and now the businesses have collapsed. And so if we start listening to people across the country, we'll see that there's actually an opportunity to create the immigration reform we need.
Yeah, I mean, it's great as you said it. I mean, the root of all cause is not immigration, rather not having a reform, comprehensive reform on immigration. So with that, I'll let you.
So I was just going to say that, I've covered immigration for much of my career, and in the mid 2000s, some of the most right-wing members of Congress probably had versions of comprehensive immigration reform that look really good right now, right? So my question to you is, all right, you get to Congress, where do you start? Is it abolishing ICE? Is it some of the other movements that might bring millions of people into the legal path? Where do you start, and where are you seeing a bit of an olive branch extended to make this bipartisan?
Yeah. I think you have to go two fronts. One is you have to stop ICE, because it's not just about what ICE is actually doing, but it's also the spirit of what ICE is doing. When you sow this amount of fear and terror in communities, it's not just about the people that are being put into detention centers and being deported, but it's also the fact that you're forcing more and more people underground, or forcing them into the shadows. People that are now not going to talk to law enforcement, aren't going to talk with getting the services that they need. In fact, in the criminal legal system, you saw this so often, where people wouldn't come forward and participate in that process, come forward as witnesses or as victims. And I don't think that that's something that our society generally wants. We want people to feel comfortable with that. So yes, ICE, and then also ending 287G agreements, so no law enforcement locally is collaborating with ICE across the country. And then we also have to pivot to, there is a demand for immigrant labor, and we can recognize that. So what are the pathways that we can allow people to utilize that, and therefore they're not living in the shadows?
It's another thing with immigration is intertwined is the families. So the families in, let's talk about Brooklyn and Queens in general, because we are in Sunnyside, right? We know most of the people are struggling today. Trump says he doesn't care, $200 barrel. I mean, he's a billionaire, and he loots banks in a different way. I know I'm going to be in trouble saying this, but
you're saying it, not me.
I'm saying it. Yeah, thank you. That makes me feel so much better.
I'm trying to travel overseas this summer.
Yeah, it's my lucky day.
I'm not registered in a party. I got to put that
Hey. Okay, I'm not going to reveal who I'm registered here.
Go ahead.
All right. Now, with that being said, we all know that there are families who are really struggling with the rising rent, inflation, healthcare costs, and the public benefits are being cut off and reduced to nothing almost. And they're going to more extreme day by day. What immediate policy would you push to make life more affordable for working class New Yorkers if you were to be elected in Congress?
Yeah, affordability, forget about the buzzword for a second. The reality is everything is more expensive and people are paid the same. And how it is that you stretch your dollar is the biggest conversation that everybody has. It's not different than the conversation that we had growing up. Like, there's times where my parents made choices about paying for a mortgage versus paying for electricity. And you had to make those binary choices. And so for me, it always starts with housing. Housing is the number one. Safe, affordable, stable, long-term housing is the number one social determinant for every single person. If you have housing, it makes it a whole lot easier to get a job because you know where you can get dressed, you know where you can sleep at night, and you can actually keep a job. You're 80% less likely to have interaction with the criminal legal system if you have housing. So let's start with housing. There's a simple lever that the federal government and Congress could pull right now, which they haven't. Section 8 is a federal subsidy that is available to community members who need assistance in paying for rent. It gives them a voucher, they can go rent an apartment. New York is the only community that I've seen across the entire country that even the wait list to get on Section 8 has only been open for 3 weeks in the last 20 years. You go to LA, you go to Chicago, you can apply for Section 8. Why is it New York, of all the cities in this country, doesn't have access to the program? Let's just expand it right now. Let's drive resources to it and give people options to get housing today. This doesn't involve figuring out repealing the Fair Cloth Amendment so localities can build housing. This doesn't have to dive into zoning laws and thinking about what AMI looks like, because all those things are policy initiatives that take a long time. I'm talking about mitigating harm today. And that's the first step that we can take for housing. The second thing is we need to create a real social safety net. We don't have one right now. Food stamps have been insufficient for 20 years that I know of, and I'm sure for longer than that. And we need to drive resources to creating a social safety net that ensures that when people do have struggle, when they do struggle and when they need support, they can access it and access in a way that reflects the actual costs of living. Next, we have to guarantee some form of healthcare. And I would love to say that we'd have Medicare for all tomorrow and we would solve this problem, but we're probably not going to get that. So let's reinstate the ACA, the Affordable Care Act's requirement that everybody have health insurance, end the Iran war, and just subsidize it. Because with 1 month of the Iran war, we could have funded health insurance for the millions of people across this country for 3 years. So these are immediate fixes that we could tackle when it comes to housing, when it comes to food affordability, and when it comes to healthcare that would change people's everyday life and allow them to focus on other things. Now, there's long-term levers we can talk about in terms of capping in fighting corporate price gouging and monopolies and ensuring that costs come down in other places. But these three levers we can do tomorrow. And so much of what we talk about in this campaign is, yes, we should have bold vision, and we do. But every single day people are suffering harm. And every single day that we don't do anything about it, things get worse. So we have to act now.
I was just listening to it, and going through all the media posts, the big outlets, and right. Yeah, you were thinking, right? This is one of the richest country in the earth.
Sure.
But why do we feel? I'm not sure. It's just that we're the poorest country in the world. So with that, I'll let you handle that. You were going to ask a different question. I know.
Well, it's related because I think all three of us on this side of the dais, politicians and journalists, not always on the same side.
Of course.
But all of us right now, I would venture feel like we're at the mercy of the algorithm.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I did want to ask you, I know we're wrapping up here, but I did want to ask you, you mentioned kind of the corporate monopolies about what your policy is on the tech sector.
Yeah.
I've been very active just, kind of in the last year on advocating for local policy that's more favorable to local media, ethnic media, supporting that studio that we're in right now that enables people to get quality journalism, vetted information. I just want to zoom out of our industry, though, and see what you're thinking about the tech platforms. It feels like they're in Washington quite often these days. Have you thought about regulation there and what the appetite across the country for that might be right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's not talking about Fox, by the way.
I mean,
just so that you know.
Could be the parent company.
I didn't check, so I don't know.
It's a serious question. It is a serious question, by the way. It's media like us, our survival issues. And for people to deserve a better, well thought out information out there and trustable.
Yeah.
So with that, please.
Yeah, and I think tech platform is a pretty large conversation. So I'm going to narrow it down to two things. One is let's talk about media in the way that we talk about small business. And the way I talk about small business is the federal government has the resources to support localities that will drive resources to small business. I've sat with so many community members in this district who have told me that, Vichal, the issue isn't that people don't want to do this. People want to create. People want to have their own things that they are going to hold on to. And but they don't have capital, right? Our communities don't always, especially immigrant communities, don't always have startup capital, or we don't get access to low interest or no interest loans in order to help our businesses get moving and get started. And we have an obligation to drive resources, whether it's a media company or whether it's some other form of small businesses, to ensure that businesses that are being started by immigrants, people of color, women, are being supported at the outset. So that's one component of it, because that type of growth is necessary. The other is, like, the big conversation in tech is really about AI right now. And what does AI mean for our future? And there's the hype and there's the skepticism, and maybe we meet somewhere in the middle where, we'll see what ends up happening. But it is clear that AI is part of our lives right now. And even those that say, well, I don't use AI, and I'm like, well, that's okay. But your bank is using AI in making lending decisions. Your potential employer is using AI in making hiring decisions. Law enforcement is using AI to be predictive about who it is that may engage in behavior that they will find unlawful. So it is here. It is around us. And if we don't use it as consumers, it is being utilized all over in corporate America. And let's not forget that AI was utilized in the missiles that we invaded Iran with. So AI is everywhere. So when we talk about it, to me, that's the conversation. And what are we going to do about that? Because every month that we wait, AI gets more and more advanced. And we've seen this. We've seen what it looked like 2 years ago, what it looks like today. Can't even predict what it'll look like next year. We need a federal AI agency today, a new agency, not embedded within any other existing governmental agency. But we created the FCC at a time when the communication channels changed, when radio became so popular and we had wire messaging. Here's that moment again. Let's create a federal AI agency. Let's create guardrails on the utilization of AI, how corporations are going to use AI, how government is going to use AI. Let's get transparency on when employers are using AI to cut government, to cut workers, and make them pay taxes on those things. But until we start doing that, we're already behind in the conversation on this, and we need to start getting ahead of it.
No, you mentioned quite a few things. I wish I had like all day.
I know. I was like, Habib, close this out. But
close this out. Right? We're getting to close. But you mentioned FTC. Right? FCC. And also FTC, the Federal Trade Commission.
Sure.
I'm going to bring in both.
It's related.
And you also mentioned the AI and, Palantir.
I didn't name Palantir, but
you understand, right?
That is the agency that I said utilizing.
No, all joking aside, our life, you're talking about, the most important part he talked about is guardrail. There are no guardrails.
No.
And whatever was left are destroyed or in the process of getting destroyed, right? So anybody who speaks with sense nowadays sounds like crazy. No,
it's true. No, I think we do sound paranoid, but it's like, no, we've seen what's happened.
Yeah.
We can't trust that you're going to do the right thing.
But I'm going to trust the Palantir.
We've seen what happened. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right? So there's a trust issue. You're breaking all the guardrails. Mm-hmm. There is no Supreme Court to protect people. It's gone. This Robert, what's his name?
Chief Justice Robert.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, openly taking bribes and taking plane rides to the women in that island. What is it called?
Jeffrey
Lolita Island.
Epstein.
Fazek. The guy is the Chief Justice. He overturned Virginia voters' right. The calls for redistricting, people's right? Healthcare has been taken away from women's right and stuff like reproduction. I'm talking about, right? And then he is giving this $1.8 billion, which came out yesterday, to Trump to donate. It's a taxpayer's money, by the way, to donate to his friends and families so that they can fight against whoever disagreeing with you. So guardrail, it's all gone. Mm-hmm. It's, somebody like you who's talking about these things, it sounds so weird nowadays. No. And I'm not joking in every sense I'm talking about. I'm frustrated, and you can hear this.
Sure.
My question to you, what is your message? We are towards the end. What is your message to the voters who are watching you? Many of them are seeing you for the very first time. Your message may, resonate, may not. Mm-hmm. What is your message to them? Why would they vote you? And when is the primary? And can they vote ahead of time?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Loaded question.
Loaded question. I just want to pause on, our institutions are being torn apart, right?
Yeah.
The Voting Rights Act was gutted. The APA has been gutted. Roe was overturned. And this has just happened in a very short period of time, and we don't even know what's going to come next.
Yeah.
And generations have felt like politicians have failed them. They've offered promises, they've offered slogans, but not solutions. And we're in a really critical period of time right now where our government doesn't work, where our economic system is stratified, our entire communities, and we're really wondering what comes next. Most people don't trust politicians. That is statistically been borne out time and time again. And honestly, like, why should you? You shouldn't. They're so often have failed us. Now, I think we're in a new generation of politicians. We have people that actually understand what it means to work with communities, to have done the work, and to offer solutions that are really rooted in that. And that's how I came to this race. I came to this race because I built new institutions. I built new practices. I built them in New York. I actually built them across the country as well. I fought every single day in court. But ultimately, I can create all the new agencies and new nonprofits and fight every single day in court, but I'm going to hit a ceiling because our policies, our system, and our government control so much of what happens around us. I decided to run for Congress because that's the type of leadership that we need in this moment. Someone who has been there, who has been in the fight and seen how much failure is around us, and that is offering solutions built on the work and experience of the communities that he has supported. We have a Democratic primary coming up on June 23rd. Early voting starts on June 10th. So that is your opportunity to vote for us. We are 1 of 4 on the ballot, and we got the top of the line, top of the ballot. So we're easy to find. And that's it.
I would tell people, whoever, you want to put in a few words?
No,
okay,
I think we're good. I think to vote, I would just say one word, which is vote, if you can.
Right. So today's conversation is your candidate, your vote, your rights, and you should exercise this. You heard Vichal Kumar today. He's been I would say very transparent about things, and he has years of knowledge, and being public defender, it wraps up to who he is. You feel like to vote for him or not vote for me, it's up to you. But do take part in primary. It matters, especially in Sunnyside. With that, we're going to end it tonight. See you in the next episode. Good night.
TBN24 টেলিভিশন দেখতে আজই কল করুন 7187776556 লগ ইন করুন www.totalcableBD.com।
নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে সম্প্রচারিত TBN24 টেলিভিশন বিশ্বজুড়ে বাঙালির কণ্ঠস্বর।